just me talking about going to a business pitch that was pretty much all kids except for one or two people. Before I start, I want to mention the same thing I mentioned in the last video, or the part 1, Young Achievers, something like that. I mentioned how during the evidence channels, I was talking to somebody about my situation during my first escape attempt, and I said that I pretty much already felt like my life was already over way before it started. Well, I was saying that I felt like that right then and there. I mean, it's like, it's not the not having hope thing, it's not about that. Because, I mean, there's always definitely other things to look forward to, because I'm more for existential, if I'm even pronouncing the right stuff, than like even anything that people consider success. But it was the fact that, as I mentioned in that last video, I did actually have a lot of plans on wanting to achieve certain things like really young. That's what I really wanted to do. And I say that, I mean like before double digits. And I know a lot of people tell me that I'm still young, but it's not about that, because it's like, it's certain things that I wanted to achieve, but due to my abuse situation pretty much, it's not even about the issue of like not having enough money for stuff. Really, it's for a lot of people, it's just their abuse situation, their family situation, or not having parents, or being kidnapped by CPS, or both really, or whatever branch of the Cash for Kids system, I guess I could say. And human cash cow systems, because a lot of people, they get dragged into like the prisons and different things like that, labor kidnapping places, stuff like that. I wanted to like achieve a lot of things really, really young, because for one, I knew that like the younger you are, the more amazing it is to people. Not necessarily because I care about what other people think, but because like I really just had things that I wanted to do and wanted to like achieve at a really, really young age. I don't want to say to prove myself, but just to like show different things that I could do and like to do, if this is even making sense. Like, for example, how I used to want to be an anonymous hacker from like 7 or 8 to 10 or whatever in the world. And then wanting to finish school early, and wanting to like skip grades, or I was supposed to but I wasn't able to. And then luckily, because honestly it was a good thing, I didn't get to go to school past elementary anyways, because that was going to be a lot more Cash for Kids system bullcrap, and it would have just been too much stuff going on at once. That's one thing that still kind of like, I guess makes me feel some type of way, caused like a lot of issues for me. Like, in fact, no, a few months ago really, I was thinking about how I wish I would have been able to invest in Bitcoin a lot earlier when I really wanted to, which of course means that like my parents would have had to do it for me, or at least I would say my grandma, my dad's mom, because I wouldn't trust my parents to do that. They would have stole the money, as they always stole the money I made from different entrepreneur type stuff that I did. So more so my dad's mom, because she was a lot more trustworthy when it came to like having bank accounts for me and not doing like anything too hectic and crazy, like just stealing all my money pretty much, or forcing me to give it to her for her to get whatever. And if she ever did borrow money from me, then she would pay me back. So yeah, there was that. The screenshots at the beginning are gonna like go into something that I'm gonna mention that I noticed at this entrepreneur pitch thing that I went to, and I've attended one before live on Zoom for a more global company, and I did want to go to some in person back when I was still in Cali, but it was like some transportation issues with that, because I was in NorCal apparently, and well, I don't even think San Francisco was that far, but I just didn't have the money to go and I needed to go. Or like when I found out, it would have been too last minute, and then I would have like not known how to get back, and then I was kind of worried about like camping overnight in San Francisco. That was the one place I really didn't want to do that at, there in LA, or the 2 places, and San Jose, so 3. But yeah, they were in San Jose, Silicon Valley, and San Francisco. Typically, there was one day that was in UC Berkeley, and they were having like, well, it wasn't even a pitch. It was some, not the Tech Expo. I wanted to go to that too, but it was some other thing similar to that I wanted to go to. But I found out kind of like too last minute. And so I finally got to go to one that, funny enough, was down the street from where I was at. when I saw it on Eventbrite. And that's another thing I meant to mention. I guess I focus more on like the more serious stuff I forgot to mention in my tips for homeless or kicked out people or foster kids, runaways, whatever people that are like kind of just like outside with nothing to do. You can find a lot of good free stuff on Eventbrite. Like, they even had food there. They had tenderloin. Not that I really eat meat like that, but they had like food there, and I wasn't even expecting there to be food. So I was actually really surprised. It's going to be kind of all over the place, but there was something else. Oh yeah, and then second, this is the other thing of the main two things that really affected me, or are affecting me, I guess I could say. Aside from wanting to achieve things before I reach double digits, and that going how that went, not realizing that I was a kid until recently also is another thing that kind of like really was kind of mind-boggling to me. I don't really know how to put it, but however I could put it, that was also like, I don't know, it's just like a weird realization. I kind of feel like this may be a really bad example, but kind of like how a guy may feel when he thinks he's been dating a woman, but then he finds out it's a man. That's kind of like how this feels to me, I think. I think it is. I don't know if that was like a really good example. I kind of feel like it wouldn't be. But it's like, it wasn't even after running away. It wasn't until like things got calm, and it wasn't until very recently that I realized this. And it was like, I don't even know how else to put it. You think you're dating a woman, but the whole time it's a man. I don't know how else to say it. I really don't. Those two things have been some of the things that I've been handling, I guess I could say, the most. It's probably going to make like not a lot of sense, but now I'm going to start. And yes, this probably is going to be kind of like depressing as well to some people, but it's definitely more lighthearted. But it also has a good side, because I mean, it does show that like there are people out there who like have some decent family system, even if it's not really that common. And then lastly, this really last thing before I start, I do still have the video uploaded, obviously, from a year plus ago, probably more years ago than that, like 2, I don't know, titled The Lie That Rich Kids Don't Get Abused. And I even feel like my own video about Sixth Commandment culture, where I also mentioned the, what were their names? I'm pretty sure it started with an M, but I really don't remember what it was. I'm gonna say Martinez, but I feel like that's not close either. But the 2 boys that unalived their parents who were chomo. It makes me think about that, but it also makes me think about people like T.I.'s son King Harris and different people like that. So I will say that like, even when their families like have a lot of crazy stuff going on due to like them being Rev 2 nice and them having to do or wanting to do the rituals that they do to their own kids, or they're just like in a Freemason family, so like they do the different little stuff that they do in their families. Even with all that stuff, it still like is really common for like their kids to find ways to make money pretty much. And I know like that doesn't really matter with all the trauma. A lot of people think that that's like what matters, and they're the people that run around talking about some I don't care about invalidating everybody else because I went through something similar, at least in my eyes, and I have a house and a car. So there's always going to be those people, but it's like, it does show that like, even when there's horrible, horrendous, terrifying things going on, they often still do pass down money to their kids, and also teach their kids like different ways to make money, but also like the bloodline stuff. In the rituals, it also kind of was like bound for them to like have money anyways, because like the rituals are for money and fame. But I still feel like even if you take the spiritual side out, they sometimes do still teach their kids like how to make money, but still there's a lot that don't. California, the poor white people call people who are trust fund babies yuppies. I know my mom used to just say uppity, although that didn't really revolve around trust fund people. That was just like something for people who like, it wasn't even really just about the amount of money they had. It was about like how they acted, really. What point was I getting at? I don't know what else to say about that. So yeah, let me just start. So I took some notes. So, some of the notes. It reminded me, it being the event, that supportive parents, or at least one, goes a long way. Everyone pretty much already had a business set up, and all the kids got funding from their parents. The only one that didn't mention getting funding from their parents was this dude who was like maybe in his like 30s or 40s, and this one girl who like she found a lot of her people that she worked with because they were in sports with her, and also because of social media following, which she said was like 68 or 60,000 plus. So like it was just easier to find customers for her, and she didn't really need like a lot of funding for stuff, although I was a little bit confused with like her specific business, I'll say that, but everyone else had funding from their parents. And that makes me think back to the comments that I have at the beginning, the screenshots, which I found those today, which I wasn't looking for that. I was actually looking for like a specific video that I heard someone mention about like things that I already know a lot of people who are going through, like how quote-unquote black boys especially are like a lot of them are really depressed and want to unalive themselves due to their family situations and abuse and neglect, and also like systematic racial stuff and different things where they just feel like, well, not they feel like, they know that really nobody gives a crap about them, and they also feel like they don't have a future. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for this specific person's video, and then also a video of someone that I know and have known for a couple years, but I ended up finding other stuff, and I was thinking these screenshots could totally go at the beginning of the video because they fit the topic. And then I also thought about it, and I was like, this could be a really good part 2 to the Young Achievers video. So let me get back to the point. But yeah, I found it really interesting. Like, I don't know if you like go and you do a couple of pitches and you like build things up as you go along, but honestly no, because from the sounds of it, definitely not with this situation. What I noticed is that everybody who got up there pretty much already had their business, and they had already had it for years on end. And like, these are people who are like 17, 18, 19, and some of them, or really most of them, because it wasn't that many of them anyways, most of them had had their businesses since they were 5, 8 years old, and it's like very obviously you could see there that their parents definitely helped them with that, which they of course admitted that their parents do still fund their business, but obviously at 5 and stuff, I mean, your parents had to help you start it. So it really kind of just shows, like, I don't know, it just goes back to that thing I said in a couple other videos. That whole, your zip code determines your how your life turns out. I could definitely see how, like, with redlining and stuff, like, that could happen. But overall, it's still totally about your family. Well, I wouldn't even say your family system. I really just say trauma and, like, how you're able to work through the systems and use the systems, or not straddle the fence and just live off the grid. Not necessarily as, like, I don't want it to sound like an only option type thing, but it's kind of like, it's just like especially, well, I don't even know how to put it. A lot of people who go through certain things already weren't like made to really be the quote unquote normal person in society anyways, which is why you get targeted. And then it's like that and the trauma, and then like different things that go along with the lack of a family system and support systems, kind of like, it kind of sets you up to like really have issues, not even like getting up in the Matrix, but just like literally being in the Matrix in general. Which is why so many people, well, I can't even say fall through, because like most of us were never in it in the first place. Some people do definitely fall through and fall to the bottom, but it's kind of like you could either chase your purpose in nature, or you could try to like do the quote unquote normal, well, I don't even say quote unquote, this definitely is what people consider the normal route, so you could try to do the normal route, although even this isn't necessarily like the normal route. This is like the taking risks, which you have to take risks to like actually have good outcomes. Doesn't mean that things are always going to work out when you try them, but like especially people in unsupportive family systems, they're gonna like get discouraged from anything that they try, and they're gonna get like held back and stuff. Although I will say that like my main issue that I talk about isn't even like just unsupportive family systems. I'm really just talking about completely dysfunctional, like with the effects of trauma. Even like I mentioned in that video about Lovely Peaches, and that lady saying, well, she's only 24 by now, so she should be able, or she could change her life around. And it's like, when you have that level of splits and fractures and you're like all over the place like that, it's not even about changing your life around, quote unquote. It's about like literally having to get Humpty Dumpty put back together again. And I'm not saying to like try to be rude, but like it's not even just about the unsupportiveness. It's like deeper, real issues. Like I mention all the time, Caucasian European Serpent Seed Rev 29 fake J3Ws typically get SRA sex trafficked by their family. The boys get SA'd too, but they very often become abusers themselves. So commonly, the only people you'll ever really hear speaking out about this or escaping from their family systems are going to be the women or the girls. In fact, if you ever see them out in public, as far as the Orthodox, because like they're just Caucasian European people. I'm not saying to like be rude or like act like people are in different ethnic groups, obviously, because I mean these people themselves are many different ethnic groups. A lot of them are Swedish, Irish, and German. Some of them are Polish, etc., etc. But when they're not Orthodox and they're not wearing like the black suits, you can't tell them apart from any other quote-unquote white people. In fact, they are the real white supremacists at the top. And so, to get to the point, I always mention that these are the only people that I've ever like seen that are able to go through SRA traf their entire life from infancy and then go get a PhD. And typically not typically, a lot of the time the PhD is in like not good things like weird sexual stuff and writing up papers about normalizing, well, typically it's about like non-offending chomos. Like I know this one who did do that. My last video I even mentioned that like I wouldn't even advise claiming the label if you're non-offending. Like you might as well just fast and pray and stuff and just stop watching porn and all that and try to work through things instead of running around calling yourself a chomo when you're not hurting anybody, because like without sex there is no sexuality. But anywho, they're the only people that I've ever seen be able to do stuff like that, go through that amount of torture and then go get a PhD or a bachelor's degree or whatever. But typically people can't do that, is the point I'm getting at. And that's why I say the family system and the trauma is really like the determining factor of how your life ends up. Aside from all the racial stuff and Babylon falling and going back into a full-blown NAZIS nation. So there's also going to be that's going to cause a lot of issues for everybody, but definitely some people more than others, obviously. But yeah, like going through college like that, or really living life in general with that amount of trauma and DID and all that stuff, or any of those mental labels, it's like it's not an easy thing. And it's really interesting how they very often do that. But also due to their ethnicity, they do kind of like get help with that type of stuff. Like they can get into schools easier. It's a lot of stuff with that. But also the schools are ran by J through W's. And so their abusers can easily like get in contact with teachers and different people over the school to find them, and they spend the rest of their life running. That's why it's really interesting how some of them even get PhDs while having to also run and hide every couple months because their family's always after them and looking for them to drag them back in or unalive them. And Allie Carter talks about this, although obviously she's not, I mean, she honestly could like be in that because there's like melanated people that are in this bloodline from like mixing, but she's very obviously in a Freemason, Black Panther, Black Boule Prince Hall family. And they do the same stuff. But due to her constant having to run and escape, she always talks about she wants to go to school and finish college, but she never can. And she didn't even get to go to regular school, like elementary, middle, high, and all that stuff due to like, not even just the traffic, but just the trafficking part of being in CPS custody. So, yeah, and it's like, you know, I think about the Shelley lady, and I always think about how, like, it is a really good thing, obviously, that she got adopted by Shelley. This is going to be way off topic. I got to go ahead and say that, but it's like, if she wouldn't have got adopted by Shelley, if her abusers wouldn't have just, like, kept trafficking her or unalived her, she would just be another homeless person on the streets being called a bum because, like, realistically, with that amount of trauma, and especially if she wouldn't have, like, finally got help and got saved by a real, like, safe, caring person, she wouldn't have even got help to work through the trauma in the ways that are possible, while, of course, still being in the traumatic situation because these types of abusers never stop chasing you. And she would have just been another quote-unquote lazy bum on the streets getting soda cans thrown at her and thrown in jail for no reason. 2. Most are/were already about rich. This is something else I've noticed, and I mentioned this in the part 1. And, like, sure, well, these people, like, half of them didn't have tech businesses, but, like, a lot of times, especially these days, tech business AI pitches are really, really big. And a lot of people are jumping into those fields. But it's like, with a lot of the popular ones and the more famous, like, AI, tech bro, teens and people in their 20s, like, sure, they didn't all have parents that were in tech, but all the ones that I've seen and heard about were already rich. Like, their parents were already rich. So not only do they have the ability to have, like, funding from their parents to even, like, start learning how to code and start their tech business, but, like, of course they also had supportive parents, but, like, overall, it's just, it's kind of like being, what's the term, 12 steps ahead? I don't even know if that's it. Like I said, this is going to be really drifty. But that's just really interesting. But I will also say again, like I said in the part 1, the fact that their parents are supportive but also fun, like them learning different things, it also shows why, like, people who do have money are able to have money generationally, because a lot of them, or some of them, like, they support their kids wanting to learn different things and stuff like that. And they're not, like, telling their kids that they're stupid and not allowing them to read or punishing them and calling them GAY for being a boy who can read, and different stuff like that people in communities with a lot of generational trauma and stuff like that do. So, yeah. I think that was all I had to say about that, but I'm probably forgetting something. But it was still really crazy, though. Like, in fact, no. I don't want to, like, put out too much detail, although I don't really know if these ideas could necessarily be, like, full-blown stolen since like all of them pretty much already had their businesses going. But one of the things that led to one of the girls starting her business at 8 was going on family boating trips. She mentioned how for her 8th birthday she got a $12,000+ boat, and that's what led to her business idea. And she said that she thought about it. She might have even been younger than 8 actually, but she thought about it and she went and told her mom, and she thought it was just like a silly fun idea, and her mom was like, that's a great idea, we should do it. And that's how things started off. And it's like, I don't even know what to say about it. They were definitely already rich. And then like this other girl who owns her own like, not NASCAR, it's very close to that, but she owns her own like a race car company pretty much since she was like 8 or 10 or something as well. And I think she started racing younger than that, and her parents fund her business. And she was talking about how like a lot of the tents are over $5,000 and $6,000, and I can only imagine how expensive the cars are. And it's like, shoot. And it's like, definitely to be able to fund that, you have to already be rich. Very obviously. Like, even more rich than the last girl with her $12,000 boat at it. And it's like, I don't know though, because I feel like it's like good to see people with like supportive family systems, but it's also kind of like also really discouraging when like you have similar ideas but you don't have the support system whatsoever. And it's kind of like, okay, wait a minute. 3, it also showed me, of course, better to start off with money to fund your business so you don't have to compete in under $1 million pitches to try to start. Although I could see why someone would do this to scale up quicker, since $10,000, I was surprised the NASCAR type girl won. It's still a lot of money to get at once, kind of. And I say kind of for a lot of reasons, not even just like inflation, but also like with the fact that the NASCAR girl won, or at least that's what I'm calling her. Since like her business stuff is so expensive, the $10,000 is kind of like 1 or 2 tents. I'm definitely not saying that it's not worth it, obviously, but I'm just saying like if one of the other people would have got the $10,000, it could have like helped with a lot of things. Like this one lady had a really good idea for like some farm type stuff, I'll say, and the $10,000 could have went into like 10,000 products. But for the NASCAR girl, it doesn't really like not too much comes out of it if it's coming out right. Then there were some other people that also had a really good idea, and like I feel like kind of it was like some biomedical type stuff, I'll say. I feel like their idea should have won, in my opinion, because while I'm not into what they were talking about, more people in the world could get benefit out of their business idea, because it was 2 girls. It's funny how like biomedical students always seem to have type 1 diabetes. But anyhow, I feel like more could have came out of their business, and it could have benefited a lot of people a lot. And I feel like the NASCAR thing, it's kind of like, I mean, only rich people could even afford what she's offering, which makes sense. And also, it's kind of like, I don't know, I thought that like one of the things with pitches is that you have to like prove that your business could benefit the world. And I swear I'm not trying to sound like a hater or anything, I'm really not. But that's just what I thought. But I guess like for the unicorn pitch where you can win $1 million, yeah, it has to benefit the world or like benefit the elites at least. But I guess for the $10,000 type pitches, that's kind of like whatever. Okay, where was I? 4. The bias of opinions, of course. So, one of the things that comes to mind, really in the business world in general, is systematic racism, opinions based off of your background and like your age and your gender and what you're into and like what you're offering. Because it's like, I will say that they picked this girl because like she had already put so much into her business, and also she was really enthusiastic about what she did. Like, I noticed everybody else came wearing a suit and tie. She came wearing a NASCAR outfit, and everybody else had on business clothes. But they all definitely did a good job though. And the guy who was running the event or owns the place or whatever, he was like, this is a 19-year-old sophomore, and these are like 18, 19-year-olds, and it makes me think about what I was doing at 18 and 19. And it made me think, well, not that, but I'm thinking about that, and it makes me think about something I was thinking about earlier, which is something that people will very often say in your face. When you're like a certain age, or like you're really young and you're already in like certain situations that people consider bad, people already pretty much see you as a lost cause. And I remember this one time I had this girl say that I was a lost cause. And this was like, it wasn't in a condescending way. Like, really, I don't even think she knew what it really meant. She just liked Billie Eilish. At least I think that was a Billie Eilish song. But it makes you think about that, though. And also, a lot lately, I've been thinking about the Backyardigans Castaway song. And, like, my mom liked that. Also, due to age regression, definitely. Which that's a whole other video, but I remember when the Castaway song went viral. And that's also what this makes you think of. I guess I'm making it depressing, but I don't know how to not do that. But that's the reality. So, anywho, point is, like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, when you're in certain situations, people already pretty much see you. I always have to bring up, like, real world events. So, just like with, I guess I could say more so the Billy from Soft White Underbelly situation, because one, since he's a boy and he's quote unquote black, he of course got more hate than really anybody else. Like, even, and I'm not saying that this boy should get hate, but I mean, think about it. The turned out boy who was a prostitute, women are still gonna treat him better because due to the fact that a lot of them have been essayed, and he's admitting openly that Billy did that too, but since he's a turned out, like, women like those, they care more about those types of guys than like other ones for some reason. I know this is probably gonna like sound however to some people, but it's just really interesting. And he's still also like a couple years older than Billy, but it's like, just like with the Billy situation, people mostly didn't give a crap, and he mostly just got hate because of racial stuff and him being a boy. And also because I feel like he had like more real goals and plans that he wanted to achieve. Now, I'm not trying to bash anybody else who, like, due to their situation, they don't see anything else. But, like, he was one of the people that really did want to, like, do things that people or that society stereotypically considers good, normal things to do and being a functional member of society. But people still hated him due to the racial stuff and him being a boy. And so anyhow, people were saying stuff like he's heading nowhere fast and he's going straight to prison, usual racial stuff. And it's really weird that, like, they never say this about the turned out black boys or the girls, but That's exactly why I say, because no offense, but turned out quote unquote black or melanated guys or boys aren't a threat to them. That's really what it is. And so that's why I made so many videos about that situation. Not because I don't care about the others, but because, one, he's the one that people cared about the least and very obviously hated and openly hated the most. And so that's how people will see you. To make a long story short, that was the point. The whole he's heading nowhere fast, he's going straight to prison, he wants to be a bum, stuff like that, quote unquote. Then it's like, well, crap, you can never really head nowhere. You always have to head somewhere, because it's impossible to not exist. 5. You have to already have a lot established to pitch, it seems. They all already had businesses, and some had been up and running for 5 and 10 plus years, since they were 8, 10, etc. And then lastly, or at least I think this is the last thing I wrote, it's scary because it reminds me of the fact that your possibilities are very limited with no parents, no family, no safety or foundation or support, really. And of course, without having basic needs met, nothing really works out. I actually get the doomed feeling of people who want to quote unquote be something, or be something one day, as a lot of people say. Now, I don't necessarily feel this, but I do get the feeling of people who do feel this way. It made me really understand the feeling that like the boy I mentioned earlier, who's one of these boys who's had the usual Jezebelic mom, although she ended up dying, and he's pretty much been homeless ever since she died when he was 12 or 14 or whatever, and just being thrown around and not having food to eat. He's 17 right now, and he had a job, but due to being thrown around and not having a real address or any transportation, he had to stop working the job. He couldn't be enrolled in school due to address stuff and things with the districts, and also just things with not really truly having a guardian. And it's a lot of stuff with that. But even when I met him, when maybe he was, I don't know, was he 10? But I don't think I ever really talked to him till he was 11 or 12. I don't even really remember, but he was always depressed due to his abuse situation. And then he felt a little better after his mom passed. And then he just got depressed again because he fell into the usual cognitive dissonance and missing her and stuff. Because realistically, even though she tortured him, literally, she was still the only person that he had around. Even when I saw him, when I went back to NC in December, he even said that he felt really sad, and he made a lot of posts of different angry things because he was upset because he missed his mom, and he's been starving a lot for years, and his mom used to cook for him and stuff like that. And he's a quote unquote black boy. And then I also know a girl who's quote unquote white who has the same situation, and she's either the same age or a few months younger, but I think they're both 17. And so anyhow, I met her in the Cash for Kids system. I met him in my old neighborhood, or one of my old neighborhoods. And she was on a lot of hardcore substances, the usual Chase and Chomos thing, I mean. I always screw that up. And really the sexual addiction on both ends. Both of them not having a dad. I even talked about the thing where her realization that having 2 dads leave really did affect her. And her mom also OD'd. Although, her mom actually OD'd. His mom was actually like spiked or something like that. Yeah, so her mom was on Fetty though. And for his mom, it was a Molly Percocet, at least from what my mom said. Although it didn't really seem like he really knew too much about what really happened. But then he was sent to live with a dude who probably isn't really his dad. I even remember my mom and her boyfriend were talking about how the dude that he's saying his dad isn't his dad, and they feel like his real dad was the dude that was the mom's boyfriend who gave his mom the Molly Percocet, supposedly. But it's like, I mean, if you really think about it, I guess maybe he does look more like that dude, but I don't really get why he'd want to go live with a dude that's not his dad and leave his dad that he was living with his mom out of anger to go live with a dude who's not his dad. It wouldn't really make sense, but I could see how like the mom may have had like a lot of lies floating around. But my mom went through something similar until her and my siblings started doing ancestry, and she found out that her dad was like her cousin or something, or uncle, that she used to go visit when she was younger. And the dude that she was told her dad, funny enough, does kind of look like her. That was always the funny thing, but me and my siblings always knew and could tell that that wasn't her dad because of how he treated her, but she believed it. And then the moment she found out who her real dad was, she started calling him, and she started calling him dad and stopped calling the other dude dad. And the other dude would only go see her brother. And the brother looks less like him than she does. But it's like, I don't know what in the world. And the reason I went into this is because both of them have the same feelings of like doom. He has the doom feeling due to like his living situation, constantly being hungry, not having a place to stay, not being able to go to school, not being able to get a job, and when he finally did get one, he wasn't able to keep it, and he really wanted to. And I think he got that one at like 16. And it's already so hard to even get hired when you're younger, even like into your 20s, and especially with the racial stuff, and then like in certain situations, it's just a lot of stuff with that. Because it's like, I don't know, the same reason why, or one of the many reasons why, like, I just couldn't date a guy who's not the same exact ethnicity as me and from the U.S. Because it's like, I just couldn't see myself supporting somebody who would never really, I don't know, I just rather, like, support someone who's, like, the same tribe as me. And then it's like, the boys who are from the same tribe as me, like, have a lot of struggles and things that happen to them, and we also have a lot of things in common from, like, going through similar bull crap. And I just don't understand why I would go support some white dude who's most likely going to be, well, 99.9% of the time, covert and subconscious racist or overtly racist. And why I would go support him and date him instead of supporting someone of my same tribe who has the same struggles as me. And I understand that, like, a lot of people feel some type of way because, like, a lot of the guys are, like, in the DL effeminate thug persona and under different programming. But, I mean, everybody's messed up. Nobody's perfect. I mean, shoot, if a dude got with me, he probably had to be in witness protection. So, it's kind of whatever, but you attract what you are anyways. But I just couldn't do it. It's just too stupid. But overall, he was really depressed and started getting more depressed because he wanted to be able to take care of himself. And this is something I've also felt a lot throughout my life, especially when I was in my previous situation. A lot of people go through abuse where they're not allowed to get a job. And not being allowed to get a job means that when you're hungry, you can't eat, different stuff like that. Or if you are allowed to get a job, your abusers may steal all your money. So there's that too. And it's really unfortunate. Although it's not that he's not allowed, it's like just different things with no transportation and like moving around too much in his situation. And it's really unfortunate. And he was wanting to unalive himself ever since I met him when he was 10 or whatever in the world. And then the other girl, I remember she would always tell me how like she never like saw herself living that long, or living this long, and how she's been like wanting to unalive herself her whole life, but also due to the different things that she was getting herself into with the chomo, she thought that like she would have ended up being taken out anyways. And then like due to the trauma and like how people are made to feel like if you don't get to go to school due to your abuse situation or whatever, that means that like you're stupid or something. But because of that, she feels like she's not smart enough to do anything. And it's just a lot of stuff with that. But I mean, even with her situation, and I'm not trying to like act like there aren't going to be barriers, but I will still say that like due to her ethnicity, she still does have like more options than like somebody who's melanated and has been through the same things. But it's still like with the trauma and her being made to not believe in herself. And also like, well, yeah, I think that's like one of the main things that like causes like a lot of issues. Like she always talks about she doesn't see a future for herself, but I feel like with Babylon falling, the dollar falling, and like things changing everywhere in the world as the beast system unfolds, a lot of younger people who like really want to be in the Matrix don't see a future for themselves because they already know that they can't afford things and it'll only get worse. So there's that. But let me finish reading the last thing that I completely stopped reading. I actually get the doom feeling of people who want to quote unquote be something in life, but know that due to racism and certain circumstances, from abuse to redlining to poverty, it'll never happen. A Celestial video earlier mentioned this and how quote unquote black boys are committing. I personally don't want to let the Matrix and things that aren't real get to me. I can only imagine what it would have been like if I could have attended those tech and pitch events back in Cali. Sobering, defeating, fun, and still remembering that I don't fit in and look out of place, and people notice it. People can sense my situation, and that I don't really belong in these certain rooms that I sometimes put myself in. Like, even when I was in Oregon, and I thought that Mount Hood was like a mountain with like a lot of trees that you could camp at, and then I went there, and I got on the van, and it was a ski resort, and there was a lot of Russians there skiing, and people were kind of like looking at me, although it was a lot less noticed, but like, blood sugar ended up getting low, so then I fell asleep, and that didn't look the best. Surprisingly, I didn't get put out, but I guess that shows that I wasn't noticed enough. But some people definitely did like see me like by myself, and I definitely did look lost and confused because I kind of was. Apparently, the Timberden Lodge, or whatever it was called, is where the movie The Shining Hotel was filmed. That's a side note. I mentioned that in my funny things that happened since running away / being homeless playlist. People who come from healthy enough family systems and like get a lot of support and stuff have better speaking abilities, which I know can be learned. Although I will say that like if you have like brain damage and a lot of stuff like that also like screws up your speaking, then like there's that can like be thrown on top of it. But overall they have like better speaking abilities and better abilities with like interacting with people and like friendship type stuff, human interaction pretty much. And like people will talk about the disability stuff and the mental label stuff, but like people from healthy family systems who have Down syndrome and stuff like that have good speaking abilities because they're still actually like not abused and traumatized, and they're actually treated like a human being and taught how to talk to people and not just chained to a chair in a corner all day, to the point where they have to start talking to themselves and different things like that can end up happening. So I also noticed that, and this is something that like a lot of people often talk about, especially in like CPTSD communities, although I don't like claiming mental labels and stuff like that, but I know when I used to be in those groups when I was 14 and stuff or something like that, I would often see people talk about how like the self-confidence and the lack of imposter syndrome and different things like that people from healthy enough family systems with parents who didn't terrorize them and put them down, just like how they turn out. Yeah, that was interesting to see as well. Not that I haven't been in environments where I've seen it before, and not even that I haven't like had to stand in front of people in recent times and like present something, but like I would definitely say that the way that these people did it was a really good job. Kind of like how people talk about the whole quote-unquote autism and the favorite topic, and how the people can like get enthusiastic about that. It even makes me think back to the NASCAR girl. Now I know that may sound like kind of rude. I'm not trying to be rude, I swear, but that makes me think about that as well. She was very enthusiastic with what she was talking about, and I noticed, and the judges noticed, and I could tell that they noticed that the one guy who was like in his 30s or 40s, he had a really good idea though, but he was really nervous and they could tell that, and it's still like, I still feel like the biomedical people, they should have won, but it's just really interesting how that goes. But that's why, especially if you can like fund what you're doing yourself, which obviously these people could do because they already had their businesses for years on end now, but like if you could really fund what you want to do yourself, you like have even more of an advantage, because you're not like having to worry about winning a pitch or just not being able to start what you want to do because you just don't have the money. And that's why, like, that's another reason why these like tech bro people often, well not often, they already have rich families. I mean, they definitely do go to the unicorn pitches, but you have to know who to talk to, definitely. Like, one of the dudes, he already lived in Silicon Valley, if I'm remembering right. And it's like, if you already live in Silicon Valley and your parents already work in, like, some science field, you already have, like, a lot of connections and stuff like that. And, by the way, I'm talking about, someone from the part 1. I'm pretty sure he said Silicon Valley. I can't even really remember. I'm not even gonna lie, but I know the Toby kid, he's from the UK, but the rest of them, they're from the US, and it's kind of like already having connections. It's kind of like the music industry stuff. It's just really interesting. But, I mean, hey, all you can do is try, hope you don't embarrass yourself, and whatever happens, happens. And it's better to try than not to try.